Hey, yo, what's the deal? Miss your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 7:05 p.m., August 15th, 2026, but the upload time to this is actually 11:30. Excuse me, this is the last video of the entire day, you know what I'm saying? And, hold on for a minute. Yeah, sorry about that. So, like I said, this is the last video of the day, you know what I mean? I hope, one good thing about today is, Wild Women of Wrestling is going to be a new episode. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know what I mean? Speaking of women, I also know that Major League Wrestling, MLW, is interested in bringing, like, why the fuck would they be interested in bringing Tessa Blanchard for, bro? Like, you don't think that same heat that she got in TNA is going to carry on with her to MLW? Come on, man. Come on, bro. I mean, come on. So, of course, like I mentioned this morning, about Kevin Owens and CM Punk, and I got some more information about their potential feud that goes back 20 years. You know what I mean? It goes all the way back to Ring of Honor. It had a lot to do with a singlet. You know what I mean? I think, from what I understand, CM Punk made fun of, of Kevin Steen, with wearing a singlet. It was some crazy shit. You know what I mean? I think Kevin Steen wanted to wear a shirt. It was just something there that, that kind of ruffled Kevin Owens' feathers. You know what I mean? But let's keep it a stack, though. I mean, Kevin Owens, look at the weight that he has. He doesn't look like an actual pro wrestler. I mean, he's too plump to be a pro wrestler, but I get it. He's a Triple H guy. And listen, Kevin Owens is great. He's fucking fantastic. Kevin Steen is fantastic. The way he carries himself and, the way how he approaches himself on promos and everything, I think he's fucking great. I think he's more than fantastic, And this whole thing with Punk is fucking fantastic to a point where it is must-see TV. And mind you, this is a feud that has been in, 2 decades in the making. And this is a real life feud. But WWE, and I don't know if you guys noticed this. I don't know if you guys have picked this up. But it seems like WWE is more inclined into playing into real life feuds and making money with these feuds way more than AEW. Let me explain in crystal clear form. And ironically enough, this has a lot to do with CM Punk on both ends. On both ends. Okay? Around 3 years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, when Punk was in the company, right? Brawl Out happened. With Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, right? And there was a fight that happened, like something happened to a point where, shit got out of pocket. Security had to come in and everything. And then, bam. You know what I mean? Punk was all TV. The Elite was all TV. They both were suspended, right? And one thing led to another. And they wound up, they both wound up coming back, but they had to be separate. Because there were some things that was going on between the Bucks and Punk to a point where now in every show, Tony Khan had to separate, both Punk and the Elite by giving them their own shows and shit, right? Punk had Collision, while the Elite had Dynamite, whatever, right? And then, All In, that the first All In London, Punk and Jack Perry, you guys know the rest. But before that though, there were suggestions that AEW could actually play into, the feud by doing a match out of it, right? You want to make some money? You know what I mean? Let's take this feud. Let's take whatever problems is there. Right? That's a cute dog. As I'm talking, I see a dog in the truck. You know, we can take whatever problems is there, right? And let's make a match out of it. Fuck it. We could do the Elite versus the Bucks and FTR, right? They wasn't even planning on doing that. They didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? They AEW did not want to do that shit. You know what I mean? They didn't want to make money off it. You know what I mean? That could have been one of the biggest matches, period, for this company. But they didn't even do that. You know, they didn't want to do that. You know, instead, what Tony Khan did was, like I said, he separated Punk, you know, gave him his own show, which flopped, by the way. You know what I mean? This wasn't going to work. It was not going to work. This whole thing was not going to work. You know, separating the rosters, it was not going to work. Right? And unfortunately, Collision is still on, but, you know, who the fuck really watches Collision? Right? But, like I said, you know, they didn't want to make money off it. You know, Tony Khan didn't want to make money. You know, this company is not built off, it's not built off of making money. It's built off of friends who just want to wrestle and think that their indie shit is going to go in, you know, to the masses, and it doesn't work. Right? There you go. So, after that, Punk goes to WWE, right? And one of the first people who he has problems with is Seth Rollins, right? He comes back, you know, one of his first feuds is with Seth Rollins, you know, because they do have a history together. You know what I mean? They don't like each other and such. But here's the difference. Here's the big difference, right? WWE knew that they can make money off of this, you know, off of this program. And that's exactly what they did. You know, whatever personal feelings they had, right? They put it to the side so that they could have this match, right? And they had it, right? They had it. And this is not the first time that WWE's done something like this, where they took real life feuds, right? Or a brawl, and they turned it into an angle, right? And they made money off it. Remember Chris Jericho and Goldberg? Remember that? You know what I mean? They had them feud, right? Who else? I think Booker T and Batista, if I'm not mistaken, right? And bam, look what happened, right? So again, it's all about fucking making money. It's all about making money. You know what I mean? I think WWE is in the business of doing that, and it's smart. It's fucking smart. It's about making money. This is what AEW could have done, and they refused to do it. They had a chance to do it, and they refused. They strongly refused. They refused to a point where, you know, now their biggest star, and he's still AEW champion. Believe it or not, he's still fucking AEW champion, right? It's now in the competitor, right? So there the fuck you go. There you go. You know? Like I said, AEW is not in the business of making bread. They're not, B. They're really not. If they was, they would have had something right there. It could have been, you know, Punk and FTR, the Young Bucks at that time, and it could have been an All-In the next year. But no, they didn't want to do business. They refused to do business. Jack Perry fucked everything up, and bam. Right? So you can tell where one company's priorities is at as compared to the next company. Right? So, yeah. Yeah. You know, when you're not in the business of making money right there, then what? You know? And we seen the video. Now, I mean, we seen the video of thing. We seen it. You know what I mean? We clearly seen it. You know, and I even made a video out of it with CM Punk and the footage, you know, the All-In footage, right? That AEW show after CM Punk went to Ariel Helwani. We seen it. We fucking seen it. And we were like, wow, I can't believe these motherfuckers this motherfucker's actually playing the footage, right? But again, you got to think. WWE compared to AEW actually plays shit smarter than the company. Because just think about this for a minute, right? They might not give you dream matches, right? They might not give you the dream matches that you want, but when it comes down to personal feuds, right? They'll weigh into that a lot more than they actually would with these dream feuds. Now, if it's a real feud, they would actually go into it more. They would. They truly fucking would. And I gotta respect WWE for that because, with All Elite Wrestling, they'll give you matches, but they're not gonna give you the matches that you truly, truly fucking want. Because this company is afraid of making money. They're afraid of making money. AEW is afraid of making bread. They're scared of death. They are scared to death. They had a chance. Again, they had a chance many years ago to do this match, and they refused. They refused. They fucking refused. Shit. Fucking Kevin Nash. I gotta give a shout out. I gotta give a shout out to two people, right? I gotta give a big shout out to Kevin Nash and to Vader. May he rest in peace. Because even on the indies, they knew how to make money, right? Remember, I think it was 2 decades ago when Ricky Morton was talking a lot of shit about Kevin Nash. He was talking so much shit about Kevin Nash. And they actually got into the ring, right? And Kevin Nash fucked his ass up. I don't know if this was a shoot, but he whooped his ass completely. They still went and did business, right? And Vader, remember when Will Ospreay was talking shit about, no, he made a comment. Vader made a comment about the indie wrestlers at the time, which still holds value to this day, right? It still holds value to this day. And Will Ospreay got in his feelings and he said something. They had a back and forth. They had a battle, back and forth and shit. And one thing led to another, and they actually did business, B. They actually did business. Why the fuck AEW can't do some shit like that? Why the fuck they can't do some bullshit like that? There you go, man. There you go. Speaking of go, I'm going to go. I'm about to be out. I'm going to the Bronx. I'm going to the Bronx. I hate the Bronx, but I only go there because I got family out there. And yeah, especially on a Saturday night. And, I'll be in town watching Wild Women of Wrestling and shit. But anyway, guys, I'm about to be out. I'm going to holler at y'all. Peace.